this is, and of course, as you know, I'm pretty direct and straightforward, which is a good thing. If you have questions, feel free. We love questions. We don't mind fielding questions. But let me give you a couple of disclaimers. Because I see you sitting on the edge of your seat ready. Before you get ready, there are a couple of things that we're going to have a hard time answering. We're going to have a hard time answering, guy in the green shirt. Oh, he reminds me of one of my kids. We're going to have a hard time answering what if. What if he did this and then he did that? And so we have a hard time answering what if, because that's not the situation. That's not the situation. It's not factual. It hasn't happened. A lot of things could happen in that what if situation. A lot of things could change in that what if situation. So feel free, ask us questions. We'll give you the best answer we can. I can't tell you it's going to be official, but we will give you the best answer and the best guidance that we possibly can give you right now on the spot. Okay? Any questions? Any questions?
I'll give you a question.
Okay, that's my man.
All right. What was the first statement I believe you put up there as far as the mission of the FHSAA?
The purpose and the mission of the FHSAA?
Level playing field.
Yes.
Okay. Flashing those state champions across there.
On C2C schools?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
St. Thomas Aquinas.
Uh-huh.
Trinity Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Can we address how one school is able to, there's another one, 17 Division I players on one school, yet in Okaloosa County, between our 4 major high schools, 6,400 students each year, we haven't had 17 Division I players over a 12-year period.
Okay.
So how is that a level playing field?
How is that a level playing field? And you're saying, where are these 17 Division I players coming from?
I'm saying there is...
And y'all be quiet now, because me and Coach Hicks got a relationship. We got a thing going.
That's right. I'm saying there's no genetic pool out there that has those kind of stats where one high school consistently has that many Division I players. So there is no level playing field.
Okay.
Is there any way that y'all, I mean, you're looking to level the playing field.
Yes.
That would be the first place I would look.
And what would be your suggestion?
That there should be a separate division for the private schools.
Okay. So hold on, and I'm going to have Justin come up, but I want to make sure they understand your question and we understand it as well. So Coach Hicks, his concern is, how does, Mr. Gillis, get him quiet back there. We gotta take some money from you. All right, so Coach Hicks, his concern is, how do you have 17 Division I players that come, that are routinely at one school, and in Okaloosa County, you haven't had 17 Division I players in all the years. In over 10 years. And I asked, what's his suggestion? Because he wants to level the playing field. His suggestion is to have a separate private school class. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Correct, okay. Were y'all clapping for the answer, or?
Was it actually a clap for me to come to the podium or her to leave the podium? All right. Currently, as you may or may not know, wherever you're placed is based on solely on your student enrollment. Per Policy 12, it's based solely on student enrollment. After going through the process this last cycle again, I've been on staff now for 3 of them. And I've been fortunate, I guess, in a way. I don't know about the last one, and many of you called me on the phone. I've been kind of in different roles, so I've kind of taken a look at those. When it comes out, like I said, currently it's based on student enrollment. From the phone calls I've gotten and the folks that I have spoken to, I think people want a competition-based caveat to be put in there. So what we're trying to do is every committee we have, I'm bringing this up. Now, it doesn't necessarily address the public versus private Coach Hicks that you just brought up, but the idea is, because I know some other states do it in a certain way, to implement a part of the policy where, let's say, just giving an example, you get so many points for a win, a couple extra points for a playoff win, and then after a 4-year cycle, you're placed based on the number of points that you actually earn. So your traditional powerhouse teams or programs that other schools feel like, you know, you don't have a chance. Again, I'm only quoting the phone calls that I've gotten. You know, you feel like you do not have a chance. They compete against each other. Then, you know, you kind of do the ones who have a traditional way of winning, you know, based on wins. So you add that competition piece to it. I am willing to do it, but the question is, how do we make it so it's fair for all? And again, I want to hear ideas, and I'm actually glad this actually came up. I was actually going to kind of bring it up at the end of the actual day-to-day, but we had time now. So what I encourage you to do, however you think it should be done, shoot me an email. If you have your pen out, my email is jharrison, Harrison, at FHSAA.org. Okay, as a member of staff, after going through this again, I think the policy needs to be changed from what I'm hearing. Again, right now it's just on student enrollment. So if you're a school at 400, you're playing a school at 400. No matter what.
We are not quite. That's not true. School playing 400 doesn't always play 400. You could have 100 versus 600.
Correct. Well, there is, you're playing the school of similar size based on the classes.
You don't think those sheer numbers, though, warrants a look at that school? That just that sheer 17 out of 22 starters, I think, warrants, without saying, okay, I've got proof that they recruited. I mean, I don't need proof.
Okay, Coach Hicks has another good point, and I'm glad you brought this up. Coach Hicks has a concern, or this is what he said, and some of you may feel the same way, and it's worth addressing, and not just addressing, but helping you understand where we are as a staff.
Let me just say, Coach Hicks, thank you, because there's a lot of other people who are also probably have that in their mind, but you're the one who's brave enough to say it, so thank you.
Actually, Coach Hicks and I, during the break, we went outside and we talked and we scripted all of this, so it's okay. All right, so listen, this is where we stand. Because, oh yeah, that's right, thank you for getting, that's my girl. Thanks for getting me back on track. Coach Hicks, the concern is it not worth, if you have all these 17 kids at this one school who are Division I kids, is it not worth doing some type of review? It looks like recruiting, it sure smells like recruiting. Is it recruiting? So this is where we are. A couple of years ago, it's been about 4 years or something of that nature, where we've been real hot with this legislative battle like I've been telling you. And so what's happened over the years and what it's chipped away at is our hands are, they're not tied behind our back, but we got one hand tied behind our back and they're forcing the other one like we have they're the law and they're forcing the other hand. And for us to prove recruiting, there has to be clear and convincing evidence. Clear and convincing evidence. And not only that, there can't just be suspicion of recruiting. We have to receive something from you that says, hey, this is an issue. And then we can start asking questions, but before we can go and say, you definitely recruited these 17 kids to this one school, we have to have clear and convincing evidence. So years ago, let's say 5 years ago, 5 years ago in a similar situation with a similar question, our answer probably would have been a little different because we could have done an audit or something of that nature, and we could have gone in and we could have looked at multiple things, you know, whether it be the transfer piece, whether it's where you're living, whether it's your student information for multiple programs at that one school. But over time, we've been restricted to our process that we have now, and we have to work within the process. Now, the concerns that you have and the concerns that you bring up are concerns that are valid. It wouldn't be fair to you, it wouldn't be fair to everybody else in this room if I just ignored any of those concerns. However, in order for that to change, you all as a membership have to change it. And what I mean by that is, if you want something that has a little more teeth, propose it, suggest it, try to put it in bylaw, and it gives us an opportunity, but understand that it's across the board. We're a state organization that's based in Gainesville with about 28 people. In our eligibility and compliance department, we have 4 people. We have 4 people for 800 schools. So, with that being said, I don't know what's going on in Okaloosa County unless your parents call me, your coaches call me anonymously, your ADs call me. Otherwise, I don't know what goes on in Pensacola or Escambia, simply because I'm in Gainesville. And once you call, that's what gets the ball rolling, and that's what allows us to ask questions. That's what allows us to look into whatever the issue is. But you gotta call us and you gotta give us something specific. You gotta call us and you gotta give us something legitimate for us to be able to go and say school, because it would be the same thing if it were your program. If it's your program and you have 6 transfers or you have 10 transfers that have come into your school, if Ms. Strappy comes a knocking and I come a questioning, your first question to me should be, well, where did you get this from? Why are you asking me about these kids that transferred to my school? You're saying I recruited them, what proof do you have? That's legitimate. That's the question I would ask if you come about if you ask about my program, and I do the best that I can, and we try to be as honest as we can. So, to go back, answer your question real short, 2 things. 1, if we don't know about it, we can't address it. That's 1. And we don't know about every school and all the transfers. We just don't know about every school. It's just impossible for 800 schools. That's 1. 2, when it comes to proven recruiting, we have to have clear and convincing evidence without a shadow of a doubt. And that's where we are now legally, that we have to have that to prove recruiting. But it's not something that we aren't willing to look into, at least. Next question. Any other questions?
As she said, I'm Henry Kelly, and I graduated from Fort Walton a long time ago, but I'm from the district. So, but I am, one of the hats that I wear for the superintendent is the district spokesman. And I'm going to be very brief because I want you guys to get out of here quick as well. And when I say I'm brief, that's the first point I'll give you in dealing with the media is be brief. I'm not going to suggest what you say about in a room of coaches about winning or losing. That's up to y'all and how you handle victories. This is about how you talk about your program and the school and other things that are going on outside of an actual sporting event. Every media interaction is a chance to promote the school and the program that you're connected to. So every time I talk to them, which the media I speak to every single day, is how am I going to represent and present the county or the school to the community? You don't talk to a reporter. They're not your friends, they're not your enemies. But when I say you don't talk to the reporter, you're talking to the community. The reporter is simply the person that's going to convey your message to the community. So don't get angry at reporters and think they're with you or against you. They're just people doing a job. And like I said, truly, they're not your friends, they're not your enemies. They're somebody who you can look at as, what message do I want to give to the community? Always stop and think about how it's going to look in print. I have a couple of simple rules in dealing with the media. Used to be a rule that said, reporters would say, get it right, get it first, but first get it right. Social media rules. First rule, the first side to tell their stories in a discussion wins. The social media moves faster than we can move. I get emails and text and comments before Mr. Koutsaratis can tell me something. Sometimes it's moving that rapidly. So it is very important that we move quickly to get a message out. Second rule, bad news does not get better with age. So if you think a story might happen, contact us so that we can help get in front of it. Now, here's the best deal of all the things you're hearing today. I'm offering you the best deal you're going to get today. If you let us know, bad news comes from my office. Good news comes from the schools. So if you have a problem, contact me. I'll be glad to talk to the media and get the bad news out of the way so that your school can be represented in the best light possible. So there's a deal I hope everybody takes me up on. And that's part of my role, is to help deal with the issues so that you and your students are constantly put in the best light. Keep it brief, especially in sports terms. Most of you know your fans have social media accounts and Twitter. Think in terms of Twitter. Yes and no are perfectly acceptable answers to questions. Yesterday, I got an email from a reporter that I promise you was this long. Dr. Chapman, our health department, it's from our friendly mutual reporter. The question was this long, and it literally boiled down to yes or no. So I started no, comma, and then wait a minute, take your own advice. My literal response to the reporter was no, period. Send it back. I swear to God, the question was this long. No follow-up from her, no nothing, no story. The story went away because I didn't feel or explain any. If I had started to provide information, then we have a story. And she asked me a yes/no question. I gave her a no for an answer. She's a smart person. She needs more information. So if you get a yes or no question, resist the urge to provide more information than you're being asked for. One of the things in dealing is answer the question you want to answer, not the question you're being asked. This is how you promote your program. Now, as a Fort Walton grad, it pains me to use this example, Ms. Gates. Question that I received. What do you think of the controversy surrounding school waivers? My response, it was specific about one of the schools. I said, you know, we have a great school, great program, such as our engineering program. A child and their parents would be crazy not to have their child enrolled in my school. That's the answer I provided, and that's the answer that actually got printed. Stop and think about what answer you want to give to the community, not to the reporter asking the question. So when I said at the outset, you don't talk to a reporter, you're talking to the community. Stop and think about the answer you want to see in the paper tomorrow. Now, everybody says, well, great, how do you do that? There actually is a way to do that. Whenever a reporter contacts me, do you know what the first thing I say is? I'm in the middle of something. What is your deadline? And reporters always go, oh, well, you know, I've got an hour or two. Great, as soon as I'm done with this, eating a donut, I'll call you back. I've now gotten all the time in the world that I need. Check my facts, talk to somebody, bounce an idea off, make sure I have the message right. Then I call the reporter back. And by the way, safety tip, always call the reporter back. If you don't tell the story, somebody will tell the story. But my point is, one of the best things I hope you take away from this is if you get a media call, you don't have to answer that question right then. Just say, hey, I'm right smack in the middle of something. What's your deadline? Every reporter will say, oh, I got time. You know, can you call me back in a few minutes? Yeah, I'll be right back with you. Let me think. Let me find out what I want to say. Let me make sure my facts are right. Then return the call with your statement. One of the things I tell Mr. Koutsaratis, he calls me, we have something every day. I will email the reporter statements of facts. You know, if I have the time to respond, I just write the email and send an email even before I even speak to them. These are all things you can do to dodge trying to give an answer in the spur of the moment and buy yourself a little bit of time to provide clarity. Now that I've beat the media up, let me say a few things. The media calls me every day asking for good stories. And since most of you in this room have jobs other than being a coach, you're teachers or administrators, and you have other things, they beg me for good news. And the more good news we share, the more positive story we provide, the harder it is for them. The bar gets raised on the bad news. In other words, a dust up in the parking lot between two kids it's not a story anymore, because we have so much good news that it really kind of makes the bad news harder to achieve that bar. So I want to give you an example of this, and then, by the way, I will give you my phone numbers because I'm serious about calling, and I'll bounce an idea off of you. I would tell people I'm not the superintendent's police department. I'm here to help you get a message right. But when I say this, the media always wants stories. A couple weeks ago, is Mary Esther Elementary represented? Anybody by chance? Okay. We did a nice little story about the robotics program at Mary Esther Elementary. You know, a couple kids, little robot, nice little story. The next day I had this woman call me up and she said, hey, I saw this article in the paper. She says, my husband passed away, and he was a robotics engineer, and I think that's a really neat program. I said, well, thank you. And she says, I'd like to donate $2,000 to Mary Esther Elementary and help their program out. That's the value of getting positive stories out. And I'd like to tell everybody in this room we can run a story and get you donations, but the more positive stories, when they see what our students are doing, what your programs are doing, and they see it in a positive light, you know, people want to support winners. And one of the things in Okaloosa County that, you know, I hope everybody's been around the state enough to know, we truly are blessed with the quality of schools we have here all over the county. I would not want my job in Orlando or Miami, okay? They have to deal with some serious problems. We have great schools that we need to put forth a great story on. So if you need me, if you can't remember Henry, your principals, the media guy, the guy who talked to us, I'll respond to that guy, okay? But I have the easiest phone number in the district to remember. It's 833-9999, okay? My cell phone is 850-371-0089. If I get a text that says, I'm with Pryor, I need to talk to you, I promise you, I'm calling you right back. So with that, I will turn it back over to Andy or whoever wants to go next, but let me know what I can do to help.
Good afternoon. I'm not wearing Choctaw green, so y'all appreciate that, but I am proud of Choctaw, and I'm proud of Okaloosa County and its athletics. Just as a background, my husband was in Choctaw, and actually Meg's, and then Choctaw. I did athletics elsewhere. My 4 boys have gone through and been involved in many sports, including football is a big one. But I just want to say we in Okaloosa County are really fortunate to have athletics. And as a pediatrician and a spectator and with kids, it's been a part of my life. And I hope to give back by serving on the Florida High School Sports Association Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. I was asked to serve on the state committee. I think it's one of the neatest boards I've been on because I know y'all don't like rules, but what we're trying to do, and Florida really has a good foundation that other states are looking at, is really make sure that you as coaches can sort of free your minds of, oh my God, what is that, asthma? Is that kid gonna have a seizure? What do I do if the sudden cardiac arrest? Concussions, all of these things, we wanna make sure that our athletes participating have been, as best we can, screened and are ready to play good competitive athletics. I know you've been bombarded today with what you have to do, what you gotta do, who's gotta sign what. That's not my purpose today. It was really kind of just to review what I feel the Sports Medical Advisory Committee's main focuses are, and then give you that background so that yet when you're handed another piece of paper, you have to watch another video on concussions, you know, okay, it's Lynn Keefe, but really it's really for the good of your students. So hang in there and know that there's a reason for the madness behind it. I hate rules, as some people know, but these are sort of what we try to do is simplify it, but yet make it complete so that each of you has the tools to deal with prevention, what happens if, and all of the making sure that your athletes are well taken care of and liability is gone and all those other things. I will also say that we're really fortunate in our county to have the athletic trainers. I know Twin Cities Hospital and Fort Walton Beach provide, I don't know how much money, but a lot to have trainers in our county. And I know Jerry Carter and Andrea and Mo, I don't know if they're here, but, and there may be some others I'm leaving out, but oh my God, what an asset that is. And you know there are counties around the state that don't have that. And so you coaches should be very thankful and let your trainers know how much you appreciate them. Where to start? I don't want to repeat anything, but okay, a kid wants to play sports. So you know they have to have that sports physical. It's good for a year from when that physician or chiropractor or advanced nurse practitioner signs off on that from the date of the exam. It's not the kid's birthday, it's not the season start time, it's the date of that exam is good for a year. What we're doing in that is really screening for these things: asthma, seizures, head injuries, and any family risk of sudden cardiac death, because God forbid in Okaloosa County, Mr. Kelly was talking about the good news in the paper. Can you imagine if one of our athletes goes down and we don't know what to do? So I'm talking about like a heart injury or a concussion where that child just doesn't recover, sudden impact syndrome. So the sports physical is a screening for that, and that really, it's all about the history. I think as a physician, you don't know whether that kid, if you're looking at him, has seizures, heart disease risk, asthma, because they might be having a good day. But by that history that really the physicians are supposed to screen, we should know, the trainer should be knowing, is it a diabetic, for instance? What are those kids' risks when he or she's out on the playing field? Once that's done, they're going to join in on your training. There is that heat tolerance step by step, and I know for your coaches out there who feel that's just bothersome, I think Coach Thomas came to me and said, why can't we wear pads on this day? And I said, well, I'll go down and change that. So, hey, we got something done for Okaloosa County, made it a little bit better. If you have anything like that, by the way, call me, because I can take that to the committee and work it if you find something that's not working. But the main things are going to be the summer thing, to cross country and football, because football is a heavy helmet and pads and heat. We don't have lacrosse players here sweating it out yet, but those are the things that kind of make the heat worse. And so let me just say that if you have a kid, the hydration, I think you all know that. My husband swears he was not allowed to drink, but I don't believe him. But anyway, get that kid water as often as possible. There are some regulated times. If you have a child that looks like there's heat, just put him in the shade or her in the shade and put her in an ice bucket of water. That's the best thing you can do for that kid before EMS arrives. So if I can teach you anything today, just ice water and shade. If you've got a child who's dizzy, passing out, not looking good, pale, all those symptoms of heat leading to heat stroke, because you don't want it to go further. So that's the most important thing you can do. Okay, so we got through the physical, we're tolerating all the heat, and we're getting into the practices. Then it's just the everyday injury and the risk of concussions and heart, I believe. So I think, do you all want to hear any more about concussions, or have you had it? Okay. All right. Just pull the kid out. I mean, come on. You just got to pull the kid out if there's a head injury. And the important thing is, I'm in the stands sometimes. Mo's down in there's physicians that can help you. There's EMS, there's your athletic trainers, and then you as coaches should know about what this concussion head trauma is all about. You're required to watch a video, sign the sheet, send it down to Justin at Fort Walton or Florida High School Sports Association. You must check off on that you are educated in head injury. It is real, believe you me. This is just starting the science of brains and that what's going to happen down the line to that kid. And really the studies kind of show that there's more I want to call it Little League football. What's that guy's name? Pop Warner, thank you. And middle school and high school, incorrect hitting that's going to lead later as compared to college and NFL. But we do have a role to play in preventing these kids from getting their head injuries. Now there is, and you've been told about the return to play. I think that's one of the more difficult things, is that a child who has had, we think you have a concussion, you're acting like you have a concussion, you've been pulled out, needs to get checked by a physician or a, who else is qualified? Help me, Justin. I think a nurse practitioner, health professional. Yeah. Health professional, that's pretty broad. But anyway, has to be checked out before returning, and they have a piece of paper that they've got to have signed. Again, hats off to Okaloosa County. The school board bought that impact software that you can have, every athlete needs to be tested. That baseline neurocognitive test is good for 2 years, so you don't need to retest somebody who was tested last year before they started. If that child has a head injury, once his symptoms are over, once the headache, the nausea, the dizzy, if everything is good physically, that's the time to take the impact test again to make sure her brain is functioning and that she's working back to 100% in the classroom even before they step back on the field in full practice mode.
Dr. Keith, I want to interject here. I've got a son that plays middle school football, and so as he's going through the tests and everything, just hearing him talk at the house, well, you know, some of the kids didn't necessarily take that test seriously, and they just went through it click, 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 click. Stress to your kids when they're taking that test how important it is to actually take the test seriously so that we have a baseline, because just going through and not doing it right just to get it done because they have to get it done, that's not going to help the kid when there actually is a concussion. And he had a child on his team last year who had to stop playing for the year because of concussion. And so that's something that it becomes important only when there is a problem, but please encourage kids to take it seriously. I
will say that neurocognitive test, we use the impact in Okaloosa County, is a tool. It's like a blood count for a physician. It's one more kind of parameter to look at in addition to the physical and asking the child questions that will help that physician clear back to play. I would hope that most of the physicians, pediatricians in the county are aware of concussions. It's a very big issue in American Academy of Pediatrics and in our county and in our athletically aware parents. And so just realize that, yeah, the baseline test is important. Kids goof around, they're like, it was difficult. Has anybody taken it? It's like luminosity. It's like, oh my God. Okay, he's starting to test for dementia, I think, actually, but anyway. Okay, so concussions. Any questions on what happens? Pull the kid out, send for follow-up, get clearance physically, repeat the neurocognitive test, and on that form there is a neurocognitive, I did pass it to get back into the stepwise progression back to play. Okay. Finally, sudden impact, or I'm sorry, not impact, sudden death. Okay, this is new for the state of Florida. If we had all the money in the world, every kid would get an echocardiogram and an EKG. Well, guess what? There's not enough money. There are not enough cardiologists to read all the EKGs. Unfortunately, even if we did EKGs, it wouldn't pick up coronary abnormalities that can lead to sudden death cardiac-wise on the field or in the gym. So we really are basing the risk factors on that kid's family history. If there is a family member who suffered a death in the 40s or died suddenly while running, that child needs a cardiologist to clear him to go into play before he or she starts. If that's on the history and that physical, I'm going to say you need to have a cardiologist evaluate you, because that's a big risk factor, like number one, okay? So if everybody's honest in that physical and the kid doesn't, but there is a death or a cardiac arrest, does everybody know where his AED is at his field house or school? Because that's going to be what's going to bring that kid back to life with a heartbeat. field house, one's at the field house and one's in your school. You need to know where that is, and every coach needs to know where that is. Yes, no?
We got old coaches, we know where it's at. We may have to use it ourselves.
Okay, well that's something that needs to be. Okay, so get the AED, call 911 and start pounding on that kid's chest. 30 and a breath, 30 and a breath, 30 and do it till you're worn out and you have a heart attack. 'Cause that's all you can do for those kids, okay? There is highly recommended, I believe, for all coaches and supplemental coaches that they need to watch the heart video called, all right, there is a name for it. It's a heart video on sudden cardiac death on the Florida High School Athletic website to introduce the concept of what's going on when these kids, why is it that their hearts are stopping, okay? All right. Anybody want to talk about MRSA? I mean, that's wrestling, that's real skin. That's not part of what? Cut me
Before
off.
we go into MRSA, I think there was some uttering back there because maybe some folks don't know what an AED is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you kind of,
Automatic something defibrillator, electronic defibrillator, right? An AED is like your electronic shock things that's on the wall in the school. And it's a monkey see, monkey do. If you can keep your head on while this is happening, you open it up, turn it on, plug it in, put the pads on, and it tells you what to do. Automatic electronic defibrillator, I believe. Which, at this point, is part of your CPR classes, which is also part of, like, if you really want to know what you're doing out there, you probably ought to take a CPR. If you don't want to take the class, it's 30 to 2. Pound on that chest 30 times and give 2 breaths and move on. But get your AED and 911 going. How's that for simple CPR? Okay. I don't know how much time. I would like to address MRSA because it is something we've had in our community with the athletes. The biggest thing is prevention. We used to call these boils, I guess, or furuncles or whatever, but this staph germ that has become resistant to the good old penicillin is now resistant to methicillin, which was an alternative form of penicillin. So really the only cure is like Septra, sulfadrug, and sometimes clindamycin. The kid will tell you he got bit by a spider, or I got a bug bite. But what's different about these lesions is that it's like a golf ball underneath it. If you just wash your hands and touch it, it's this fluctuant collection abscess that will spread if not drained. It can spread and you can get cellulitis, which is inflammation of the skin, and you by contact, you're leaving the germs on weight room equipment and towels and benches, so it can be come through a field house or school bus, if you will, if you're traveling closely, and spread pretty quickly. So the best thing is prevention, recognizing when a kid has it, get him to his physician, good soap and water, good showering after they're practicing. I know kids don't like to do that, but oh my God, please let them have time to shower before they go to class. And then actually the cheapest, least expensive way to handle it at home is tell parents half a cup of bleach in about a 5-inch tub, sponge bath a couple times a week will very much cut down on the bad staph that everybody's got on their body somewhere, okay? I know wrestlers, there's that skin thing. I don't think any other sport is as badly affected as fungus and staph. All right, that's all I wanted to say. How about that?
On that same subject, kind of go through some more specific stuff on the policies and kind of show you where some of the information is on the website. Dr. Keefe, I'll brag on her. She does a terrific job on our committee. Like I said, she's been on there for a couple of years now. That committee meets 3 times a year at least. Occasionally we'll have to call a special meeting if anything, any big item comes up. But they do a terrific job. We are often in that room for hours trying to do, again, the best for the student athletes and also the best for the coaches, for you, to try to prepare you and keep you informed of what's happening and how to help you, unfortunately, if a certain case or a certain situation would arise. All right, let's go to policy 40. All right, policy 40, as we mentioned earlier, head injury and the concussion policy. We talked about that EL3CH form. That's what the C stands for. This has information in there, so this is what I want to assign you as your homework. I definitely encourage you, if you have not read this, I highly encourage you to read this today. It's just about a page and a half long policy. I don't want to necessarily read it word to word to you now, but it goes through the signs, the symptoms, what all to do. And please know the responsibility has been placed on you as the coach. Okay, the responsibility is not on the official. A common thing we hear is, well, if the official thinks the kid is okay to play, the kid's all right. You as coaches, again, you're the ones who are required to watch that course prior to the season, so the responsibility falls on you to try to just keep your eye out, notice anything weird. Again, as she mentioned, any doubt, always pull the kid out. Again, that responsibility falls on you. Sometimes officials will call us and say, well, the coach asked if I could put this kid back in and I didn't know. The officials are not going to know. So again, just kind of stress to you, not trying to scare you, but trying to stress that responsibility does fall on you as a coach. So the more education you can provide for yourself, be extremely familiar with policy 40. Again, I'm trying to drop that policy 40 in a lot to try to encourage you to get in there, get involved with it, make sure you know it backwards and forwards. Very important. Another thing she mentioned is heat acclimatization. Policy 41. They're back to back. Another part of your homework, if you will. Currently, what it is, there's certain rules. If Ms. Strappy can go to 41.4 for me. The whole part of the policy is obviously extremely important. It gives you signs, the reasonings, what happens. 41.4 gives you the guidelines on what you're allowed to do as a coach. There's a heat acclimatization period that's for the first 14 days, the first 2 weeks of your practice. Okay, it limits the amount of hours you're allowed to practice per day. It is 3 per day, 24 per week. It also, as she mentioned, the football idea with the pads. Looking at 41.4.7, the first 2 days are restricted to helmets only. 3 through 5, you can introduce shoulder pads with shorts. Then on day 6, you can start doing full gear and you're allowed to hit student to student, player to player. Again, there's also other various rules for some sports as well. For the sport of cross country, before an individual can compete in a meet, they must have at least 10 practice sessions under their belt. So again, that policy 41, very important. Make sure you are familiar with it. Another portion of it's 41.4.9. That first week, again, we talked about the limit of the amount of hours. Starting that week 2, that day 8, that's when you're allowed to do a 2 a day if you choose to do so, with a max of 5 hours. Okay, again, you can do a 3 and a 2 or 2.5, however you want to set it up. So please be familiar with that policy. It is set up for your health and safety of your student athletes. A lot of this information was used, the NCAA has similar procedures. A lot of this information was provided by the Corey Stringer group. As those of you may have remember, the football player who unfortunately died about 5-6 years ago, I believe it was. So a lot of this information is kind of brought through with them as well. So please be very familiar with this. You hate to get into a point where, you have a terrible issue happen to you. And worst case scenario, if you weren't following what it says in the policy or the procedure, then not only do we have a tragic incident on our hands, but we all have an incident afterwards, maybe with like some legal issues as well, as we kind of alluded to earlier. Now, if I can get Ms. Strappy to go to the website. We have, and we kind of want to hit some of the stuff on the site now. If you can go to all right. Under About FHSAA, there's a health and the wellness page, like Dr. Keith mentioned. There's videos up there. Thank you. You'll see here on the right-hand side in the blue part of the page, general resources, communicable diseases, heat, stress, There's also a lot of information over here about, here's head injuries, concussions, and as we scroll down, there's, again, we try to give as much information, any incidents with weather. Again, we live in Florida. It's very scary at times with the storms, steroids, and what kind of other supplements. Here's videos. We got videos and all that kind of stuff. Ton of information. Use this information. Share this with your players. Share this with your parents. It's a free resource. Most of the information, the videos are not long at all, so it's not like you're sitting through a 3-hour video. It's short and sweet and to the point, but it's trying to provide you with the information that you need as a coach. So that way, again, in the unfortunate timing, if you have an incident, again, we hope everyone in this room has, and anyone across the state or across the world never has an incident, but at least, unfortunately, if you do, you're somewhat prepared the best you can be. And staying on the site real quick, if you scroll up, Mr. Happy. Before I jump to some of the next stuff, are there any health and safety type issues? Yes, sir, Andy.
Just, we have some PE teachers, I think, that are joining us now.
Okay.
That aren't necessarily coaches. But just to touch on heat a little more, we do have a district-adopted heat chart.
Okay.
That we use, heat index chart that we use for physical education classes, K-12. Okay? One of the first things I discovered when I came into the position that I'm in is that I discovered there is no heat chart for athletics on the FHSAA website. And I talked with DeNarvis and others, and maybe you, and the recommendation at that time 2 years ago and in other conversations is it's not about charts. It's about being familiar with hydration and heat and your students and acclimatization. Can you speak to that about chart or no chart?
Absolutely, and please know, obviously, I am not, I did not go to school for this background. I am not trained in this background, but from what we've gathered, and especially our Sport Medicine Advisory Committee, like I said, that meets 3 times a year. I sit in on that committee as well. A chart can be helpful, but it can also give you a false sense of hope as well. Meaning, if you wait to a certain degree, if you wait till the humidity is a certain percentage, that's not always going to tell you something, because you could have a kid at any time overheat, no matter, if it's 85 degrees outside, as opposed to, having one at, 95, 98, or whatever it may be. So it's more about your individual student athletes, knowing your individual student athletes, and, knowing especially those sports in the fall when you're coming from the summer, trying to get a gauge of what they've done during the summer. Where again, we're in a different day and age now, where I think a whole lot of us here, probably during the summer, we'd be outside day in and until when the sun came up, and be outside till the sun came down. Sometimes now with children nowadays, it seems like that's kind of changed, and there's more staying in, playing the gaming systems and stuff like that. So they're not necessarily the same as when we were growing up or playing high school. So it's best to know your kids, keep them hydrated, never ever hold them back from water. If they ask for water, make sure you do give them that ability to get that water. That's one of the biggest things. That's kind of where changing the mindset is. Getting water does not mean you're weak. Getting water means you need to get water. So it's a very important thing. Again, please do not just rely on charts. That's information that we have received as well. It's about, again, knowing your athletes, knowing what they've done, and not trying to overdo it the first few days. Is working them into that ability to, be able to adapt to that heat, adapt to that humidity, because, again, we are in Florida, and we actually have not established any kind of a chart because, again, depends on where you're at in the state. You know this area better than I do. If we would set a chart and a specific number on it, this area may be different at 85 as opposed to the center part of the state or down in Miami. So, you are the ones that know in your area. So again, be familiar with this policy, follow, exactly what it says. There's a reason why it's there, and it does not put specific, heat index counts on there or numbers. If you want to use that to help you, the more information you have, the better. But also, we do encourage you on behalf of our Sport Medicine Advisory Committee not to just rely on the one thing, because you never know. Does that help, Andy?
Sure does.
All right. All right. Anything else on the health and the safety of the student athlete? I know, again, kind of covered a pretty good amount of stuff, kind of giving you some homework assignments there, but wanted to take a quick few minutes to kind of walk you through the website. And the reason is because, this is one of the best tools you have as a coach. We put a lot of information on there. This kind of tells you what's happening, what's going on, and it'll try to, we try to do our best. So if you look at this is the front page, and the website is www.fhsaa.org. Hopefully you are somewhat familiar with it. As an AD, definitely encourage you to go there every day. Involved as a coach, it couldn't hurt, to maybe check it, a few times a week. We just got headings there of the different areas. You'll see our headlines. We always release headlines, like currently right now, the latest thing we did, the Floyd E. Lade Cup, the information about there, who's leading in the standings. As Ms. Strappy kind of alluded to earlier, there's stuff going on with our House and our Senate. Unfortunately, lost our official call to action. Those of you remember, we've been going through the reclassification process, so we kind of released the information there. So, and if you scroll down just a little bit, Ms. Rappy, we have a calendar always on the left of the upcoming events. The now due, again, very important for the administrators, but as a coach, you can definitely help out as well on what all is due. Some quick links here, the calendar, C2C schools, all administrators who are all the ADs in the front row, you're automatically a member of the FHSAA since you're a member school AD. Just show of hands out of curiosity, we got a link to FHSAA. How many coaches here are a member of the FHSAA? Okay. The rest of you, do you happen to know what the FHSAA is? Okay. The FHSAA is an association, and I'm kind of going to do a little plug for them. Because when I was a coach, I was a member of them. The FHSAA is a Florida Athletic Coaches Association. It's a coach association. It's for you. It's made up of coaches. It's across the state. They do a conference for each sport at least once a year, where it gives you, if you're able to get time and to get down there, it gives you a chance to kind of get with your colleagues to see, okay, here's what I'm doing here in this part of the state. Here's what I'm doing here. There's vendors, they bring in speakers and stuff like that. So I definitely encourage you to get involved with them. They do a terrific job as well. If we go back and let's just pick a certain sport, Ms. Strappy, just pick one in the winter. It don't matter which one. All right. When you go to each sport page, a lot of information, but it's got a lot of pertinent information here for coaches. All right, this is the main portion. Obviously, you see the tabs there across the top, main portion. Here's your important dates. Gives you the playoff information, planning meetings. If you haven't already had those, they're coming up soon. There's some March and April for next year, your planning meetings, your dates and times. So if you don't hear from the other school, we put that link up there. Here's previous results, just information, playoff information. Now, if we scroll back up real quick, Mr. Appy. In the tabs here, here's the current assignments for the year, the ones for the upcoming season. Click on the advisory committee for me, please. All right, want to highlight this as well. Want to put in a plug for our advisory committee. Long time ago, first thing this morning, when Ms. Strappy talked about the board of directors, the representative assembly, and so forth, here's how, as a coach, you can get involved in this process. We keep alluding to the handbook and the rules and how our staff does not necessarily make the rules. I mean, we do not make any of the rules, but actually as a member school, you make the rules. So if this is your sport, these are your folks who represent you. So if you think something needs to change, go to this link. If you click their name, it'll bring up their email, and you can send them an email saying, hey, I think we should change this, or this is an outdated rule. We need to take a look at this. And so this is your committee. So this is important for you to be involved. And I actually want to take a step further and encourage you to actually try to get on the committee. There's many times when people will call us and say, well, this rule's stupid. I don't really understand this rule. Be a part of the process. And what it does is it helps you, if the rule doesn't make sense to you, it may make sense in the other 75% of the state. So it may help you out and understand, okay, maybe it doesn't necessarily apply to us here in this county, but you know what, it applies to the remaining part of the state. So get involved. What we do is we actually send out emails, and we also put it on the headline. When these positions are open, we send this information out so folks can run. We do an election, so you're voted on by your colleagues. So, run, get on these positions, get involved, see how it works. And at the very least, though, share ideas with these folks to let them know, hey, we need to try to change this, or let's try to take a look at this. These folks do a terrific job. Sanctioned events, more for your ADs to know what events have been sanctioned. FAQ, just click those. We generally try to keep as much information, again, on the website. We're piloting an officials online evaluation program that we started back in February, I believe. So we're trying to pilot that program, because the coaches call us, we need a voice about what's going on with our officials. Okay, we're trying it out. So again, we do a rules presentation, and any kind of rule question that we get kind of over and over again, or anything that's kind of new, and we try to put that information up there to try to help you out. So again, the website is a great resource, to try to visit. Again, you're busy, you're teaching, you're in the classroom a lot of the times doing other stuff. So, not required to go every day, but definitely encourage you at least once a week. Just try to go on there, just see what the headlines say. And obviously during your sports season, or right before your sports season, definitely highly encourage you to go to your actual sport page. And if Ms. Strappy, if you can just hold the cursor over the main things, the main tabs up there. Yep, you see about FHSAA, see the different areas. Let's go to eligibility and compliance. Ms. Strappy mentioned the webinars earlier. They're in a different spot, or help me out.
No, they're on the right side. On the right side right there.
All right. She talked about a lot of the, hey, what all do you do with this? What happens with this? They've actually done a terrific job with many of the questions they've received from coaches. They've created the recorded information right there. You kind of go in and just say, okay, you got a spare, about 20 minutes long? They're about 10 to 20 minutes long. So if you ever had a question about what you can do in the off season, and what do you do this, you can generally search and try to find the information. So again, just kind of pointing out, the website has a lot of key information. It's got a ton of information, but generally it's going to be on there somewhere. You want to go back to about FHSAA? You just hold it right there. So there's a bunch of different stuff. Health and wellness, we went there earlier. Go to 4 schools. All right, this is an important part. 4 schools, rules and publications. All right. Here's where we list all the information for all the sports. All right, the handbook we keep referring to. There's a PDF version right there. We've kind of gone to it a bunch. Officials guidebook. The officials have rules as well. In each sport-specific book as well. We put that all online for you to give easy access, easy information, so you can pull it up. Anything else on the website? I'll turn to unless Ms. Strappy thinks there's anything else on the website. Again, there's a ton of other stuff to it. Just wanted to point it out to you. That's a resource we try to use, because again, we can't send you an email every day. We can't call you every day, but we try to give as much information online as we can to try to help out with that. To give you that information that that we receive all the calls and emails on, to try to provide it to everyone involved.
Just to kind of piggyback what Mr. Harrison said, on our eligibility and compliance website, what we did about maybe 3 years ago, when when changes started happening, and they were rapid, and it was some of it was because of legislation, some of it was just trying to keep up with the change of athletics, the change of interscholastic athletics. What we did as an association was we made it our mission, made it our goal to attempt to educate you, or at least provide resources, a lot more resources that you can get a hold of without having one of us or even your athletic director there. Something that you can get a hold of, you can click on a link and attempt to understand whatever's going on or be able to answer your question. So as an eligibility and compliance department, we revamped our front page, or actually the whole page. And we tried to make it, our goal is to make it a little more user-friendly for you as the principal, for you as the AD, for you as the coach. So for those questions, some of the things that we went over today, a lot of it's posted on our website. At the top in those little green tabs, there's a green tab for most of the hot topics that we receive questions on. Club teams, recruiting, transfers, non-traditional students, meaning homeschool students, charter school students if they're participating at your school. At the very top, there is a tab for pretty much all of those hot topics, and in layman's terms, it explains what the rules are. And then to the right, we have 3 sections: education, mentorship, and service. In those sections, we're providing additional information based on certain things, whether it be due process like sectional appeals committees, or best practices for new administrators, or if you need some brochures on sectional appeals, new administrators, or non-traditional students. Okay, so that's just a little tidbit, especially for newer coaches or newer athletic directors or administrators. Now, a thing that we've been saying that we're going to get to all day, and our goal is to get you out of here early, so we're going to do 2 more things. Mr. Gillis, I think, left us. So, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought you were gone. You were fading. I saw your head going like this. Okay, he's still here. We're okay. So, we're going to do 2 more things, and then that's it, and I'll leave you alone, and I won't bother you anymore. 2 more things. We're going to discuss legislation currently. We're going to discuss legislation. I know, I heard a moan and a groan over there. It's okay. It's okay. It's just proposed. Proposed legislation. I didn't say that, you're right. We're going to discuss proposed legislation, and then we're going to open it up for a couple of questions if you have some. Okay? So those are the last 2 things that we're going to do. So let me pull this up. I'm not sure if you can see that. So let me explain to you exactly what this is and what's going on, so all of you are aware. And I'll be honest with you, when you read through the bill, and I have the bill over there, when you read through the bill, there's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff, and it's all over the place. And we are still in the process of going through it all and trying to figure out exactly what the impact is, what the unintended consequences are, how will it change what you do every day. So right now, there is a House bill that's in the House, and who has the number for it? House Bill 7187, thank you. House Bill 7187. Initially, it started out, if you've been following the legislation or the legislative season, this is how it all started. Back in January or February, I think it was, the Education Committee in the House decided they took up the Florida High School Athletic Association, basically interscholastic athletics as a topic. And so they had about 3 sessions on interscholastic athletics, extracurricular activities, I should say that. Extracurricular activities, which includes interscholastic athletics. And at each of these 3 sessions, they discussed extracurricular activities / athletics, and discussed the good, the bad, the ugly, the promising, the whole gamut. And about maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, they drafted it as a House bill, as a bill for the committee, an education committee bill, okay, proposed committee bill, that's what it was called, a PCB. And the proposed committee bill, this is the analysis, our analysis of the proposed committee bill. And what we did was, we put all this together, we went through the PCB, proposed committee bill, and we put all of this information together and we sent it out to you all as a membership, just to let you know that this is going on. About, maybe it was last week in the House, Education House Committee, they approved the PCB. They approved the proposed committee bill, and now it has a bill number, a House bill number. It's not a PCB anymore, but it's a House bill number. So where does it go from here? Well, it was an education committee bill, and not just a regular bill that was sponsored by a representative, but instead it was sponsored by a committee. So we're still figuring that part out, I'll be honest with you. And as I was speaking to a gentleman earlier, We suspect that it's less steps for it to be approved than a regular bill. It's not necessarily going to go through the education house and then another education committee, and then 2 other committees and then the floor. But instead, it could potentially go, since it started at the education committee, it could go to the special order calendar and then to the floor. And then it kicks over to the Senate. So it may only have 3-4 more steps. We're not sure. That's just where we are right now. So let's look at the analysis of it and the impact. There are about 9 things that we were able to pull out of it, and some of these have changed, and I'll tell you which ones have changed since they made it an actual House bill. But the 9 things that we were able to pull out and say that these are some major impacts to schools, to school districts, are these 9 things. The first one, a lot of school districts, they prohibit school districts and schools from making stricter or more stringent transfer rules. So you have some school districts where we have transfer rules that are in the book. And because we have a bylaw that allows school districts to make stricter rules, you have some school districts who have said, if you transfer, you sit out a year automatically. And that's their school district's rule. And there's nothing that the Florida High School Athletic Association can do about it because they have that authority to make stricter rules. If this bill passes, they won't have that authority anymore. All transfer rules will be the same across the board for all students, and you can't make stricter rules. Private or public, doesn't matter. This is the rule, okay? The next one, it allows students attending public schools, home education programs, non-member private schools to attend one school and participate in extracurricular activities at another school. Let me explain that one. And I won't go through all of these because some of them may not apply as much, but I'll skip over maybe 1 or 2. What that means is if your school, the way that it's situated now in the bill, if your school does not offer a sport, that student can choose another school to participate at in extracurricular activities, including athletics. So Choctaw offers everything but golf. The student can choose to go play golf for Walton Beach, or whatever school their parent can transport them to. Okay, so it will allow a student to participate at 2 schools at one time. Another impact will, number 3, as far as in ruling students ineligible, they've expanded that criteria. Instead of initially it started out they only could be ineligible for 3 things, now it's for 8 things. It includes an impermissible benefit, unsportsmanlike conduct, GPA, limit of eligibility, falsifying information. So it expanded that a little bit. Another one up here is it allows schools to be members by sport for association. Now, on the front end, you look at that and you say, that's interesting. But when you look at it, and for me, I try to, in this process, I try to be unbiased because my husband works at a school. And so we discuss this stuff and we debate and we go back and forth. So I try to look at it from all ends of the spectrum. So how would that impact you as a school district? If you could be a member by sport, for an association by sport. Currently, like it, love it, leave it, want to throw it away, we have a classification process. And you all are classified in your different classifications, and those are the schools that you play. If it is allowed where you're a member by sport, one impact could be that you may have less people to play within your classification. Another impact could be, and that meaning because you have people who are members of different associations, and those associations could have different seasons. All of that's not specified. So it could impact financially how far you have to travel to play somebody. The equity and competitive edge or competitive equity that you have currently. So there are a lot of unintended consequences and impacts that it could have that we're still trying to get through at this point. Another one is our membership, or right now the way the governance structure is set up, the governance structure, meaning the board of directors, the representatives of assembly, the people who make the bylaws and the policies, you all, member schools, it will expand that. It'll still be 16, but it will allow parents to be on those committee and have just as much of a say-so as you do. And for parents to make the rules, along with you all, have a voting voice or a voting hand in making the rules for the rules that you all have to follow, pretty much. It changes the due process system. It does do that. And let's see, and then another big one, the last one, number 9. In 2017, the Department of Education will designate who will be over athletics for the state of Florida. So athletics will be driven or designated by the Department of Education, okay? So those are that's currently what we have. That's currently the impact of this bill. And it has changed a little bit. It has changed a little bit. The GPA, there's still the 2.0 GPA requirement, but they've changed some language from what we've heard as far as in GPA and how it's going to be calculated as far as in the 2.0. So right now we're still sifting through everything. And as soon as we get it together and we figure out exactly what it says, we will send it out to you all. But what you can do, however you feel about it, what you can do is you can contact your representative. You can contact your legislator and say, why is it good? Why is it bad? Whatever your stance is. Simply because it's going to have an impact. And that's the thing about change. Change isn't necessarily bad, but change should be something that should be forced or decided from within, from you all as a membership. And that's what, as an association staff, we try to enforce, we try to implement is what you all want. So you may think change is needed and change is necessary, which is not a bad thing at all, but it should be something that you all decide as a membership, okay? So that's the legislative update. That's where we are now currently. Do you all have any questions for us as far as in what we've reviewed today and what we've gone over today? Any questions for us? Any questions, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Humphrey, and Mr. K? No? Wow, you guys that was simple.